The Chosen Path, Episode 3 of 10. When the chosen are called before they're ready. The call never comes when you feel prepared. It comes like a whisper in the chaos, a soft pull in the middle of confusion, a sacred interruption when everything still feels unfinished. The chosen are never called when they feel ready. They're called when the world says they're not. You thought you needed to have it all figured out. You thought your healing had to come first. You thought you needed more time, more strength, more understanding. But heaven saw something in you that your own eyes hadn't recognized yet. The call didn't wait for your perfection. It responded to your purpose. And though your hands still trembled, though your heart still questioned, though your soul still carried scars, the voice still came, "I choose you." The truth is, the call was never about your comfort. It was about your alignment. It wasn't about your preparation. It was about your positioning. God doesn't wait until the world says you're qualified. He moves when your spirit is aligned with the season of destiny, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. That's why the call often feels disruptive. It pulls you out of what feels safe. It draws you away from what feels familiar. Because your calling is not based on your current capacity. It's based on your eternal identity. You may not feel ready, but your soul remembers that you were sent for this. Divine timing is never about your schedule. It's about heaven's orchestration. And when the call arrives, it rarely aligns with your comfort. It doesn't knock politely. It invades softly but undeniably. It moves when your hands are still trembling and your feet feel unsure. There's a holy discomfort in being called before you feel ready. It stretches you. It unsettles you. It whispers to your spirit while your soul still wrestles with doubt. You look at yourself and think, "I'm not ready." But God looks at your essence and says, "You've always been." The discomfort is not a sign of disqualification. It's proof that you're stepping beyond the familiar, because purpose will never feel like routine, and divine assignments will never fit in human timelines. You might be asking, why now? Why me? Why here? But the real question is, why not? The ones who feel least ready are often the ones most aligned. Because readiness in heaven is not about confidence. It's about surrender. That burning in your chest, that pull in your gut, that whisper in your prayers. It's not pressure, it's permission. So don't despise the discomfort. It's not chaos, it's activation. The unease you feel is a sign you've crossed into spiritual movement. Your readiness may feel absent, but your destiny has already arrived. When the calling comes, so does the conflict. It's not just the voice of God you begin to hear, it's also the voice of fear, doubt, and resistance within yourself. You feel the pull toward purpose, but also the weight of your perceived inadequacy. One moment you feel chosen, the next you feel incapable. One breath filled with boldness, the next consumed by uncertainty. This is the war that happens not in the world around you, but within your soul. You wonder, why would heaven call someone like me? Why would destiny rest on hands that still shake? Why would purpose reach for a heart still healing? But this is what you must understand. The conflict within you does not cancel the call upon you. The doubt you carry is not a disqualification. It's a doorway, a threshold you must cross, because every chosen one has faced it, even the greatest. Moses doubted his voice, Jeremiah doubted his age, Gideon doubted his strength, even Jesus was misunderstood by his own people. The inner war is not a weakness. It is a sacred test, a divine stretching, a moment when your soul wrestles with the weight of your assignment, and your spirit whispers, "You were born for this." And though the conflict is real, so is the call. And the one who called you knew you would hesitate, but he called you anyway. That's the grace of being chosen. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to respond. You keep looking at your condition, but heaven only sees your calling. You keep counting your flaws, but God is counting your fire. You see your scars, your history, your imperfections, but none of them disqualified you, because the call was never based on your condition. It was always rooted in your essence. You were chosen while you were still broken. You were marked while you still doubted. You were separated while you were still searching. The world waits for perfection. Heaven responds to purpose. You thought your past discredited you. But what if your past is the very thing that makes you ready? What if your wounds are the portals through which your light will shine? What if the parts you hide are the parts heaven will use? God doesn't anoint the perfect, he anoints the willing. And even when you try to tell him why you're not ready, he answers with only one word: go. You are not called because you are flawless. You are called because you carry something eternal. Don't let your condition convince you that your purpose has been postponed. Don't let your delays make you believe you were disqualified. You are still chosen, still called, still marked, still needed. Because heaven doesn't see as man sees. Where others see a weakness, God sees a doorway. Where others see a failure, God sees a vessel. You weren't chosen in spite of your condition. You were chosen right in the middle of it. The calling never enters quietly. It disrupts. It shakes the ground beneath everything you thought was stable. It rearranges the rhythm of your life, even when you didn't ask for change. One of the first signs that you're being called is that your routine no longer satisfies you. The things that used to feel safe now feel suffocating. The places that once brought comfort now feel foreign. The people you once walked with begin to feel distant, not because you've changed, but because your spirit is transitioning into alignment. The call is subtle, but its impact is radical. It makes your spirit restless. It makes your soul question everything you've been settling for. You wake up with a feeling you can't explain, a knowing that something greater is pulling you. You try to keep up appearances. You try to maintain normal. But nothing feels normal anymore. Because when heaven activates your assignment, your atmosphere begins to shift, even before you do. The conversations change. The energy around you changes. Even the silence begins to sound different. Why? Because you are no longer where you were, but not yet where you're going. That in-between space is sacred. It's the space between identity and destiny. The place between who you were and who you must become. And while it may feel confusing, it's divine. Because the chosen must first be unsettled before they can be positioned. Don't resist the disruption. It's not the end of your stability. It's the beginning of your spiritual activation. Long before you understand your calling, you already feel the weight of it. You carried it in your childhood. That heaviness you couldn't explain. That depth you couldn't name. That inner gravity that pulled you away from shallow things. You walked with burdens no one else seemed to feel. You sensed things others ignored. You saw meaning in moments others passed by. And though you didn't have the words for it, your spirit already knew you were carrying something sacred. The weight didn't come from pain alone. It came from purpose. But purpose always feels heavy before it feels holy. And that's what most people never see. They see the symptoms but not the assignment. They call it mood swings, disconnection, overthinking. But it was never disorder. It was divine preparation. You felt tired without reason, weighed down without clarity, as if you were walking with something invisible on your back. That's not fatigue. It's the spiritual gravity of your calling. You were carrying a mantle before you even knew what a mantle was. You were navigating warfare before you learned the language of warfare. You were walking under prophetic skies before you understood how to interpret them. That's why your process feels strange, because you are built for something beyond understanding, and your spirit often walks ahead of your mind. Don't resent the wait. It is confirmation. Even when your understanding lags behind, your spirit is already in motion. And as you walk further, the understanding will catch up. But the wait was never a mistake. It was a seal. You've tried to run, you've tried to hide, you've tried to bury the calling beneath layers of distraction, denial, and delay. But still, that voice remains, not loud, not aggressive, but constant, persistent, steady. That quiet voice within you, the one that speaks when everything else goes silent, is not your imagination. It's not a thought. It's a remembrance. It's the sound of your true identity calling you back. You may have ignored it. You may have drowned it in routine. You may have tried to walk in other directions. But every detour only led you back to the same whisper, there's more. Even when you gave up on yourself, something deeper inside wouldn't let go. You felt an ache when you tried to settle, a restlessness when you tried to conform, a discomfort when you tried to be normal. That voice wouldn't let you quit, because it wasn't just your voice. It was the echo of heaven reverberating in your spirit. The reason you can't walk away completely is because your soul already agreed to this mission long before you were born. That's why, even in your darkest moments, you still felt a flicker of light, a pull, a knowing, a reminder that this isn't just life, this is assignment. You can try to live small, but the fire within you refuses to be silent. Because you weren't created for comfort. You were created for impact. And even when you want to give up, your calling keeps calling you back. The moment you begin to rise, resistance rises too. The atmosphere around you begins to shift. Distractions intensify, doubts increase, old habits return, relationships shake, doors close, the pressure builds, not because you're on the wrong path, but because you're closer than ever to stepping into your divine role. The resistance is not punishment, it's prophetic confirmation. It's a signal that what was dormant in you is awakening. And darkness always panics when light begins to take shape. You may have noticed, just when you start to align with purpose, unexpected chaos appears. That's not coincidence. It's warfare. Because your obedience threatens systems. Your voice disturbs atmospheres. Your presence activates change. And the unseen realm reacts. You feel tired without reason. You face storms you didn't invite. You feel misunderstood, isolated, under attack. But take heart. This is the final press before the shift. The last squeeze before the release. The last shadow before the dawn. What you're facing now is not a sign to stop. It's a sign to keep going, because the weight of resistance only increases when your impact is about to be felt. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him, and the pressure you feel is proof of your rising power. So don't retreat, don't shrink, don't silence your voice. This resistance is the sound of spiritual birth pains. You're not being broken, you're being brought forth. One of the greatest paradoxes in the journey of the chosen is being called to move before you feel equipped. You still feel unsure. You still have questions. You still see gaps in your knowledge, flaws in your character, and weakness in your hands. But something in you says, go. And so you begin to move, slowly, cautiously, sometimes trembling. And yet, as you walk, something sacred begins to activate. Not because you were ready, but because obedience opens doors that preparation never could. You were waiting for strength. But strength comes when you start moving. You were waiting for confidence. But confidence grows when your steps become consistent. The truth is, heaven never asked you to be perfect. It asked you to be available. And every step you take in faith becomes a seed that grows into clarity, boldness, revelation, and spiritual maturity. Your equipping is not external, it's internal. It's buried in your spirit. It's written in your DNA. It's etched into your soul by the one who called you. You'll discover new dimensions of yourself on the journey. You'll tap into gifts you didn't know you carried. You'll speak with authority you never rehearsed. You'll walk into rooms and realize you didn't come with power, you came with presence. And presence will always accomplish what preparation cannot. Don't wait until you feel qualified. Walk now. Because every step forward reveals what's been hidden inside you all along. There's something sacred about carrying what you cannot yet define. A sense, a pull, a fire. You feel it, but you can't put it into words. You walk through life sensing something greater, but you don't always have language for it. You've tried to explain what you feel, but words fall short. You've tried to express the visions in your spirit, but people don't understand. Even you don't fully understand. But hear this truth. Just because you can't explain it doesn't mean it isn't real. The greatest moves of God begin in silence, in mystery, in hidden things. And the chosen often carry things that don't yet have human vocabulary. You've been misunderstood because you're carrying something that hasn't been revealed yet. You've been judged because you walk with an energy others don't recognize. You've been questioned because your soul is pregnant with things that only time and obedience will bring to light. That weight inside you is not confusion. It's construction. You are being built from the inside out, and the blueprint is spiritual, not logical. One day, what you carry will be understood. One day, the words will come. One day, others will see clearly what you always sensed silently. But until then, walk faithfully with what you feel, even if you can't yet explain it, because God doesn't need you to define it. He needs you to embody it. You've felt it for years. That silent ache, that sacred pull, that inner knowing that refuses to be silenced. You've tried to delay it, tried to ignore it, tried to convince yourself you weren't ready. But deep down, you've always known. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't just another video. This is heaven reminding you. I called you before you were ready, because I knew you before you were born. Your fears may scream, but your spirit agrees. Your doubts may linger, but your destiny remains. You may feel unqualified, but your soul carries an unshakable yes. You were not designed to wait for permission. You were designed to carry light, to shift atmospheres, to awaken generations, to walk in places no one else dares to go. You were chosen. You were marked. You were sent. And now, you can no longer ignore the voice that's been calling you back to yourself. If this message stirred something deep within your spirit, don't let it pass. Type in the comments, "I am chosen." Tell us where in the world you're watching from. Let your voice rise alongside this prophetic movement. Subscribe, like, and activate the bell, because episode 4 is coming, and your awakening has just begun.